Hi, I'm Moreno from Legion of Racers. So last year I've had some opportunities to drive some real racing cars like the Vios Cup car and the Radical SR1. There's no doubt that the gap between virtual and real racing is closer than ever before. Still, there are some differences to take note if a sim racer makes the jump from virtual to reality though. That said, here are 5 factors that are different between the virtual and real racing environments. First up, there are the G-forces that you would experience in a real racing car. Of course, in sim racing, you wouldn't feel as much G-forces in a realistic manner as you would in the real world. Most sim racers would go for a static cockpit setup because a motion simulator can be a little costly. Also, motion simulators can only do so much when it comes to replicate the motions or the movements around the car. They could either be too exaggerated or can only give essential details, essential feedback like when you run over bumps or curbs. In real racing, you would be thrown around the seat whenever you take the corners. Or if you have a secure bucket seat, you would feel some squishing when you take corners at higher speeds. It may take a few laps or runs to get used to it, but once you do, you'll be able to make use of it to get the most out of the car. Also, some of the fastest forms of motorsport in the world require drivers to be extremely fit just to be able to handle the G-forces exerted inside the car. Number 2, tire models. And I did say models for a reason. Different games have different tire models as we know it. But if you were to concentrate on just one game, you would notice that the tires only differ between lifespan and grip. In the real world, however, different tire brands and models can actually make a difference when you drive out on track because they have different tread patterns depending on the situation and their target market or their target driving style. Number 3, handling models. Different games have different handling models depending on how the developers implement it in the game. Some games are tuned to be fun and accessible to both casual and hardcore racers, while others stay true to simulating a real-life handling as accurately as possible. It's like how a GT3 car in Gran Turismo is still easy to drive even with traction control disabled compared to the exact same GT3 car in Assetto Corsa Competizione. In real racing, however, there's so much more going on which can actually affect the handling of a particular car. We now have to take in consideration not just the electronics present in the car but also asphalt quality, track and ambient temperatures, wind direction, even the condition of a car suspension. Number 4, field of view. In sim racing, we have the choice if we want to use single monitor, triple monitor, or even VR. Depending on our choice of display, we would have to adjust the field of view accordingly depending on our preference. In the real world, however, we only have our head and eye movements as well as our car's seating position to deal with. But we can see so much more in our surroundings. We don't need any VR or triple screen anymore. We can just look around and focus on where we want the car to go. Lastly, what I think is the biggest difference between virtual and real racing is the fear factor. In sim racing, when you damage and crash the car, you can respawn for free back into the garage and try it all over again. But in real life, it is going to hurt both physically and financially. When you drive out on a real racing environment for the first time, safety will always be one of the first things you will be having at the back of your head. There is no doubt motorsport is a dangerous sport, but with adequate safety measures, a good understanding of the driving fundamentals, and enough practice and seat time, you will be able to overcome the fear factor and be able to jump from virtual to reality without any problems. Because at the end of the day, the exact same driving fundamentals can be applied to both sim racing and real racing. Sim racing has become so advanced over the years that even real racing drivers resort to sim racing for their training purposes. And that's all there is to it in this video. Any gamer, any sim racer can be a real racing driver one way or another. As long as you have a good understanding of these factors and the driving fundamentals, you'll be in good shape. For more updates on content and event announcements, make sure to check out our social media pages and our website at legionofracers.com.